Welcome back to my vessel of light. Tonight we enter a room that looks ordinary. The mess on the shelf was not the real clutter. We meet a secret that asks to be cleaned gently. Amara de Leon had a spare room that held every postponed decision. Boxes from 3 apartments, a crooked lamp, a suitcase with a broken wheel. The room felt heavy even when nobody stood inside its doorway. She kept the door mostly closed, telling herself she would handle it next weekend. Months collected like dust. The air carried a tired sweetness, a sign that something unfinished had been living rent-free. One Saturday morning, the window shade snapped upward by itself. Light poured across the shelf and made shadows honest. Amara realized the visible mess was camouflage. The true clutter lived where her decisions kept holding their breath. She wrote 3 rules on a card and taped it to the wall. Water before worry, breath before sorting, kindness before conclusions. The card steadied her hands and gave the room permission to forgive mistakes. She began with the top shelf, ticket stubs, unmatched cords, 3 notebooks, a sealed envelope without a name. Her chest tightened in a familiar way, the kind that says feelings are heavier than cardboard and ink. Amara set a timer for 10 minutes and called it a kindness sprint. Anything obviously expired left first. Warranties, dead batteries, a map for a city she no longer pretended she would visit this year. Beneath the shelf lived a plastic bin labeled photos. The lid stuck. She twisted carefully and finally lifted it. Inside were prints from childhood, graduations, beach days, and a picture that made the air hesitate. The picture showed her mother packing a blue suitcase. Amara remembered the trip that changed everyone. The week her mother left for treatment and asked the house to practice patience. The suitcase had become a symbol that never unpacked. She placed the picture on the desk and drank water. Declutter emotions means letting a picture be heavy without punishing it. She whispered a thank you to the past and returned to the living pile with respect. The sealed envelope waited like a dare. She slid a butter knife under the flap and found a list written in her own handwriting. Titled Someday Room, the list named promises that never received calendars or budgets. Plant basil on the windowsill, lived beside Fix the suitcase wheel. Call Aunt Lila and ask for the salsa recipe. Apologize to Jonah for months ago. The paper shook slightly, a weather report printed on cheap stationery. Amara recognized the secret the room kept. This was not storage. This was a museum of delayed courage. Every object held a paused sentence. The mess on the shelf was a cover story for unfinished sentences. She wrote a new plan on a clean card. 10 days of tiny exits. Each day one action that clears a sentence. Some will leave the house. Some will become calls. Some will become forgiveness that fits today. Day 1 belonged to the suitcase. She took it to a repair stand near the station. The wheel clicked back into cooperation. The attendant said this luggage has miles left. Amara felt miles return to her shoulders. Back home, she made a keep box, a donate box, a recycle box, and a decisions box. The last one held items that demanded conversations, declutter emotions, not just objects. She promised to keep the promise simple and repeatable. Day 2 planted basil on the windowsill and asked the room for patience. Day 3 asked for the phone call. She walked while dialing Aunt Lila. They laughed through the recipe and added a secret step. The kitchen later tasted like patience. Day 4 returned her to the photos. She scanned a few and mailed copies to cousins with short notes. Your smile here still works on cloudy days. She did not need to keep every print to keep every thread. During day 5, she found a scarf from her friend Mina. Once borrowed and never returned, the scarf belonged with Mina, not the closet. Amara wrapped it gently and wrote a card named "Thank you for warmth" during winter number 2. Day 6 discovered an old award that never felt like her. She learned to celebrate without keeping the plaque. She snapped a picture and donated it to a school thrift shop. A student might enjoy its shiny encouragement more honestly. On day 7, the sealed envelope returned in memory. "Apologize to Jonah." The sentence waited with a chair. Amara drafted 3 lines, sent them, and felt the room exhale. Forgiveness is a housekeeping skill that spills into calendars. The spare room became a daily classroom. Declutter emotions means labeling feelings before labeling bins. Sadness wants a soft container. Guilt wants boundaries. Nostalgia wants airtime and then a bedtime. Rage wants a supervised walk around the block. Amara created a corner altar of practical tools, a water glass, a timer, a pen that writes smoothly, index cards. She called it the kindness station. The station prevented heroic marathons and protected the body that would live here tomorrow. One afternoon, her neighbor Theo knocked with an extra box of citrus. He noticed the open door and asked if she was moving. Amara said she was arriving. The phrase surprised them both. The room smiled by widening without noise. They sorted books together. Theo took 2 cookbooks and a dictionary. He left a ladder for the high shelf. The ladder reminded her that asking for help is a form of storage that saves the spine and the clock. Behind the high shelf, a forgotten cardboard sleeve hid a small cassette. Its label said Kitchen 2012. Her family once recorded messages for one another when schedules collided. Amara found a thrift store player and pressed play carefully. The tape carried dinner plans, weather jokes, a reminder to buy candles. Then a message from her mother, a voice steady and human, saying she was proud of the way the house kept light, even when mornings were stingy. Amara sat on the rug and let the rug hold the weight. Tears arrived without needing dramatic music. Declutter emotions means letting tenderness have a seat. The tape ended with silence that sounded like a blessing delivered on a Tuesday. Week 2 brought refinements. She created a someday basket for ideas that deserved a vote later. Once a month, she would review and either schedule or release. The basket caught stray ambition before it could turn into dusty guilt. She labeled a new container repairs. Everything in that bin required a resource. Time, money, skill, she scheduled one repair each week. The calendar transformed regret into logistics, which is the quiet magic that makes homes kinder to bodies. She also made a ritual called doorway breath. Each time she entered the room, she paused for 3 counts, looked for one small kindness to perform, then left without guilt if time was finished. The room respected this truce. Amara donated clothes that argued with her shoulders. She kept pieces that supported her day rather than auditioned for a different life. Declutter emotions often begins with fabrics that carry stories without permission. The mirror looked more compassionate afterward. A storm arrived and knocked power out for an hour. The room held steady. Candles and a battery lamp waited calmly. Amara realized order does not require perfection. It requires respect for future tired selves who will need easy kindness in the dark. During another pass, she found a stack of old letters. Some held grief, some held laughter. She kept 5 and released the rest, not from denial, from trust. The feelings had graduated. The paper could retire with honors. She created a boundary phrase for new items. If it does not have a job or a seat, it cannot live here. Saying this kindly to herself prevented impulse purchases from turning into Saturday apologies to square footage. One evening, she hosted a tiny swap. Neighbors brought extra mugs and frames, left with mixing bowls or books. The room enjoyed the exchange. Generosity is a furniture style. It makes corners feel larger and pauses feel less lonely. Theo asked whether she had named the room. Amara laughed and said yes. This is the clearing. She placed a card on the doorframe with the word clearing. Visitors read it and naturally lowered their voices as if approaching a chapel. The basil sprouted, small green commas along the soil. The windowsills smelled like possibility when sunlight arrived. Amara texted Lila a picture. The reply arrived with a recipe for basil lemonade, summer in a glass, forgiveness in ice cubes and water. She moved old technology to a responsible recycling center. The volunteer praised the labeling on the cords. Tiny compliments add fuel to long projects. Amara felt momentum without mania. Declutter Emotions benefits from steady gears rather than fireworks. A few objects argued for attention again: the tape player, the blue suitcase, the photo of the packing. Amara realized some items are not clutter. They are teachers. They can stay as long as the lesson stays useful and kind. She updated her rules card: water before worry, breath before sorting, kindness before conclusions, boundary before returns. Celebration without spectacle. She ate one cookie as a ritual after each session. Small sugar to honor small courage. The secret of the room finally stepped fully into daylight. It had been keeping the moment her family learned to survive change. The objects had guarded that memory until she could hold it without dropping other parts of herself. Amara printed a small photo of the room when it was full. She taped it inside a cabinet, a museum label for the past. Not to shame, to honor the journey. Then she cleaned the cabinet floor and smiled. She turned the clearing into a studio for quiet work. A table faced the window. Pens lived in a cup from the swap. The repaired suitcase waited by the door as a symbol of readiness that did not rush. On the first morning of the new studio, she wrote invitations to friends. Come for tea. Bring one small thing to release. Take one small thing you actually need. They came. They traded. They laughed. The shelf held only cooperative stories. A child placed a toy car on the donate box and said goodbye formally. The room received the ceremony with dignity. Declutter Emotions teaches children that release can be kind. Keeping can be purposeful. Both can be done without punishment. Amara started a weekly practice called Inventory of Clear. 3 lines: what left, what arrived, what I felt. She taped the lists near the door. Patterns emerged. Afternoons worked better than mornings. Music helped. Deadlines did not. A text from Jonah arrived with a steady tone. Thank you received and appreciated. Amara replied with a wish for a season. Forgiveness did not erase edges. It smoothed traffic. Intersections worked. Travel resumed without horns. The clearing helped with work too. Her morning shift finished earlier because decisions no longer stalled in hidden piles. She trained new staff using the rules card. Kindness before conclusions. A cafe can declutter emotions by naming the next good step. She framed the listener postcard and placed it above the desk. The sculpture reminded her to carve ears before carving mouths. Conversations about stuff went better when listening arrived first. She overheard herself becoming more patient with her own delays. If your room keeps a secret behind its piles, consider the card in the 10 days of tiny exits. Label feelings before bins. Choose water before worry. Then implement one small logistic step that makes breathing easier. Thank you for being here with my vessel of light. If this story kept you company, like the video so the candle travels farther. Subscribe to my Vessel of Light and share one small rule that helps you declutter emotions today.